Okay, now see if you can follow me on this. Imagine a blend of French, Spanish, Portuguese, Italian, First Nations, and African cooking. Then add aristocratic European style. Are you still with me? Now take all that to the southern United States and Louisiana. That's Creole cuisine and our inspiration for today's dish. Dungeness crab and spot prawn etouffee with sautéed collard greens and cornmeal crusted okra. I'm Garret Schack, and today, that's what we're cooking on the coast, y'all. Bonjour and enchanté. Today we bring Louisiana to the west coast with some Creole-style Dungeness crab and spot prawn etouffee. We're serving it all up with sautéed collard greens and cornmeal crusted okra. Sound good? You bet it does. Let's get started. Essentially what we're going to start with is a roux. So Creole cuisine has a heavy French influence, as some of you may know. So what we want to do is take that classical sort of flour and fat, or in this case we're going to use a little bit of veg oil and butter, and we're going to make a brown roux. Essentially what that does is creates our depth of flavor for this whole dish. The etouffee refers to smothering, and what we're basically going to do is smother some wonderful spot prawns and Dungeness crab in this sauce. There we go. Now it might seem like a lot of butter, but what you want here to make your roux, and this is a classic sort of ratio, is equal parts butter to flour or fat to flour. So we're going to put a whole sort of quarter pound in there. Next, I want to turn on our rice. Classically, the etouffee is always served with some just plain old white rice. One of the most important things you'll find in Creole cooking is what's known as the Holy Trinity. It's a combination of 3 vegetables: onions, celery, and green peppers. The Trinity, as it's known in Creole cuisine, is what the mirepoix is to French cuisine. So we'll just open up our bell pepper. It doesn't have to be too precise here. Now there is a difference. Some of you may be going, well, why is he calling it Creole? Isn't it just Cajun cuisine that they find down there in Louisiana? Well, there's 2 different types. There's actually the Creole cuisine, which is more of an aristocratic, kind of more polished food that comes actually from the French settlements, whereas the Cajun cuisine is more provincial and rustic. So if we look at our pan now, we're starting to get some browning there, which is exactly what we want. So don't panic. Don't go running to the stove and turning everything down yet. Want to melt that out. And right about at this stage, we're going to add our flour. The whole works, equal parts again, remember? There we go. And now we want to give it a stir. So we want to incorporate all that fat and flour together. So this is becoming the beginning of our sauce. Again, we're going to let this cook away, probably 5 to 7 minutes sort of thing on a fairly high heat, being careful to stir fairly frequently. You can see all that flour is dissolved in the butter now. Here we are, and we're gonna let it brown. So there's 3 different types of roux. We've got just a plain old white roux, then we have the brun, and then we have a brown roux or a dark roux. And we're gonna go for a little bit darker color this time. Chop up some celery real quick here. Some really amazing stuff, a lot of culture and history behind Creole cuisine. It's one of my favorites, that's for sure, because it's just packed full of flavor. It's said that the first Spanish, French, and Portuguese Creole cookbooks were written in 1885. Those guys had it going on way back then. All right, we're almost there with our Trinity. And if we can turn our attention to the pan real quick here, we can start to see the browning. That's what we're looking for. Do you see how it's going brown? And what that's doing is toasting and cooking our flour. So the flour we're kind of getting rid of that. If you were to just eat some flour, it would taste really starchy in your mouth. So we're sort of getting rid of that, and at the same time adding this real nuttiness to the dish. All right, so we're getting really close to the time that we want to add our vegetables. I see my rice has started to boil. Just gonna turn it right down and put a lid on. Okay, there we go. Turn it down to a nice simmer. Give our onion a quick chop here. There we go. You'll notice I'm not panicking about the stove. I do want that browning to really start coming along. Let's have another look, and then we'll get our veg in there. There we go, look at that. So we're at the blonde stage, going into a bit of a darker brown stage, and it looks great. You can really smell the nuttiness coming out of there already. So it has like this sort of hazelnut type smell. We're gonna go ahead and add our vegetables. Perfect. Add our Trinity, right? Go down to New Orleans and they'll be impressed that you knew what a Trinity was. I remember the first time I actually saw this dish cooked was this famous guy named Emeril Lagasse was throwing all kinds of bams and garlic into his dish, and I fell in love with Creole cooking thanks to him, actually. All right, now we're going to let that sweat out a little bit, another couple of minutes probably. In the meantime, we want to add some seasoning. So right here I have a Creole seasoning. This is basically a bunch of different spices and a few dried herbs that make for the Creole cooking. Now, we're looking at paprika, there's some thyme, onion powder, maybe some Cajun spice, or some cayenne pepper to give it that little bit of heat, but really, really tasty stuff. You can make your own, or most places you'll be able to buy it. So I'm gonna sprinkle some in. Wow, already, the first thing I can smell is that dried thyme coming out of there. It's really incredible. Not too much punchy heat. Creole cooking does typically have some spice to it, but we usually add that afterwards in the form of hot sauce. Add a little bit of salt here, some white wine. So now this is where our sauce is going to start to be created. Music to my ears. And as we all know, Creole is famous for his music. There's this Creole music is actually known as zydeco, which is the music of Creole. The word zydeco actually is a derivative of the word haricot, or beans. And it's from the song Les haricots sont pas sales. So the beans aren't dirty, which is kind of neat. All right, you see that water, or that wine was just completely absorbed there. Now, let's add our chicken stock. So this is pretty common to use chicken stock in a fish dish. It adds depth of flavor and gives it a little bit, keeps it from tasting overly fishy, sorry. A little bit at a time. Give it another good stir. And you'll just see that all start to come together nicely. Look, see how we're getting nice rich sauce there already? Oh man, it looks fantastic. Now at this stage, I'm gonna let this finish cooking out, let all those flavors sort of come together. We've got a nice heavy bottom Cuisinox pan that will hold the heat and allow it to spread out evenly, so we shouldn't get any burning spots on there. And I'm also going to watch the thickness of the dish. So if it needs to, we can always add just another touch of stock so it doesn't get too gloopy. Now we'll be back later in the show to pull together our Creole style Dungeness crab and spot prawn etouffee. But first, right after the break, we'll get out of the studio. You'll want to stick around for that. Here we are at the latest addition to Victoria's Street Food. Foo brings us an amazing ramen bar. I can't wait to see what Patrick has cooking up for us in the back. Let's go back and check it out. Patrick, how are you?
Doing well, thank you. How are you?
Good to see you, buddy. Thanks for having me in your kitchen. So ramen. Ramen is basically pork stock, noodles.
It's not always pork stock, but our sort of signature ramen here is a tonkatsu ramen, which is a pretty a rich pork broth, which brings us over to this pot here,
right? Okay.
Which is our pork stock. This has been going for about 24 hours, and it's been on this rolling boil this whole time to boil that fat into the stock, and gives it makes it for a more rich stock and a nicer sort of a fattier mouthfeel. We're going to start with our dashi. This is something we make in house. This is just it's basically you steep dashi like tea, and it's dried smoked tuna, bonito, and kombu seaweed.
Nice.
And the results are. If you
want to have a little taste?
Yeah, absolutely.
And
it's just a nice light. It's packed with umami. It's got a little bit of smoke there, and a nice mouthfeel from the kombu. These are our greens. This is a little su choy, baby bok choy. Yeah. Okay, now we're going to move on to the noodles, which is obviously a critical element of the dish. These are alkaline noodles. They're made they're made for us by Bag of Pasta. Nice,
and the idea is that they hold up as you go and withstand some of this rapid boiling kind of thing that you're going to put them through.
Exactly, they're meant to have a little bit more bite than a traditional fresh pasta, so that they still have some chew by the time you get to the bottom of your bowl.
Right. No details are overlooked in this type of Japanese cuisine
whatsoever.
Okay? Perfect.
So we're going to start assembling our bowl. So in goes couple ounces of the dashi.
Interesting. So that's the very first step. I think.
Yeah,
that's cool.
you bet. And this is just rendered pork fat, and we're going to just put a little bit in there. And what that does is it helps coat the noodles, and it helps the broth cling to the stock. Or sorry, cling to the noodles.
It all sort of sticks together.
Yeah.
Very nice. So that didn't take any time at all in there. Are they those ready to go?
It's about 45 seconds. They're good to go. It's fresh pasta. And so we're just going to coat these noodles real quick with the dashi and the pork oil.
Oh, that looks fantastic already.
And then we're going to move on. This is our pork broth. This is all seasoned up. And one thing that we do here is we just give it a little buzz with our
magic
hand blender
motor.
Just going to give it a buzz just to aerate it a little bit. And what that does is it just lightens up the mouthfeel just slightly. Because it is a very rich broth.
Yeah, with your double stock there, you're going to end up with a really rich broth, right? So,
yeah. So
I love that idea. That's great. Now, that's not traditional though, is it? Like that's
no. This is a Western technique.
Smart though.
And so you can see the color there. We're going to take our greens. We're going to garnish with greens. And what vegetable we choose to garnish sort of will rotate with the season.
Varies with what's around, right?
Yeah, we're not super picky about what goes in there in terms of the vegetable garnish.
And these are the standard type garnishes that I could expect if I come in here and order this dish. This is what I'm going to get
here. But none of what we're doing today is really adheres to Japanese tradition.
Right.
So,
which is fine. We're on the West Coast, baby.
Yeah,
right?
it's just my take. I'm a Irish Canadian from the prairies, so I look like I should be making traditional Japanese food. All right, so now those are just a melange, if you will, of sautéed mushrooms.
Lovely. Excellent use of the French term.
Yeah, thank you. And this here, in goes our pork belly. This is braised. All right, so here we have our confit pork belly.
Confit pork belly.
Delicious.
Pork, and more pork. I love it.
It's pork on pork.
It's fantastic.
Okay, and now we're going to move on to our pickle element. We want to have one kind of pickle element with a bowl of broth that's so rich.
Okay, right.
Something to cut through a little bit of that richness. So we make these are our house-made pickles, and then Garret, I'm going to let you pick your pickle.
I get to pick my pickle?
Pick your pickle,
I get
the
honors. Hey, well, I love the color of this pickled cauliflower here, so I'm going to go with that. I think that looks fantastic. And so, yeah, like you said, this kind of, like I can tell it's compartmentalized. Do I just kind of drop it on one side here?
Yeah, you bet.
Well, I like a little
nice
bit more.
placement, chef.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
You've done this before.
My first rodeo, hey? So I love the complexity of this dish. I mean, it's got all the flavors, the richness, and then you've got the vegetables.
Mm-hmm.
You get that pickle to cut through the fattiness. It's just, I don't know. Like I think you hit the nail on the head earlier when you said like it's, no details are overlooked here.
Yeah, and this is our final.
You cooked an egg or two, my friend.
Yes.
Oh, that looks incredible.
And then we're just going to season this with a little bit of the malted sea salt.
A little salt, perfect.
And then our final garnish touch here, a little square of nori. And there you have it.
Look at that.
That is fu ramen pork tonkatsu.
Mind if I dig in?
Please do.
So chopsticks and one of these fancy spoons here.
There you go.
This looks incredible. I can't wait to try that broth. And these noodles too. You got me so excited about the noodles, Patrick.
Let's have a taste.
Oh. Just incredible. The complexity of the flavor is what gets me. I love that. And so rich as well. Oh, here we go. I'm going to put my chopstick used to the test here. So is slurping appropriate in here? Yeah, I know, right? Is slurping appropriate here?
Slurping is not only appropriate, it's encouraged.
I'm not going to leave here without finishing this entire bowl.
It's all yours.
The texture of the noodles, you nailed it on the head there, buddy.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, Patrick. Thanks for having me in here, and I look forward to coming back for many more bowls of noodles here.
Well, we look forward to having you.
All right, it's back to the kitchen, and we're working on Creole-style Dungeness crab and spot prawn etouffee. We've got some sautéed collard greens and cornmeal crusted okra. So, lots happening here right now. We've got pans on every stove, food everywhere, but we're gonna pull all this together. Getting the pan nice and hot over there. I have some collard greens here. This is a traditional Southern Louisiana type vegetable. Has a really unique flavor. Kind of a bit lemony, but it's got a really nice sort of earthy touch to it as well. So just rough chop some onion, and we'll get it right into the pan. Let that start to saute. Okay, and the collard greens, we're gonna fire these in there just fresh. So I'll give it a little chop. It's beautiful stuff. It grows all over our island. So this is where we're taking some Creole tradition and putting it into our West Coast cuisine. Our onions haven't quite started to saute yet, but that's okay, because I want some of that steam to help steam up our collard greens. So we're just gonna pile it in there like that and let all that heat come together as it goes. Now, we haven't forgotten about our etouffee, and you're probably going, well, didn't you call it a Dungeness crab and spot prawn etouffee? Hold your horses, it's coming. Dungeness crab is really delicate, and so are spot prawns. So if we were to add them at the beginning, they'd be overcooked and like bubblegum of the sea by the time we got going. So we've waited until now. The consistency of our etouffee sauce, our Creole sauce, looks pretty good. We can adjust that as we go. We're also going to check and taste for seasonings and flavors. Oh man, the bell pepper, the lovely spices from all that thyme and cayenne and paprika that was in there. It's fabulous. It's really coming together nicely. I do think it needs a couple of last touches though. I'm gonna put a little bit of Lea and Perrins in there, or Worcestershire sauce, a couple drops. Oh, some fresh cracked black pepper. Don't wanna forget that. And I'm gonna give it a little squeeze of lemon. There we are, not too much. We don't want to overpower. Okay, and one last touch before we add our seafood is we have some tomato sauce here. Just a little bit. It adds a touch more acidity and deepens the color a bit. Now I can hear my collard greens going, but we need to continue on here. Okra is the next one. So okra is a really unique vegetable, and it's very, very popular in a lot of Cajun cuisine. And if you've ever worked with okra, you know it kind of has this inherent sort of stickiness to it. And that actually, when you put it into a sauce, will start to thicken naturally. So it's a really, really interesting vegetable to work with. Today, we're gonna fry it by making a quick batter. We've got some whisked egg here, and we're gonna do a cornmeal crusted okra. So into the egg batter, and then we're gonna go straight into our cornmeal. I have some of the Creole spice left over. I'm gonna use that to season my cornmeal. And then we're just gonna shovel these right into our mixture here. Now we don't wanna dump all the egg in there, and the amount of egg that I had in there was for quite a few more. Get them all nicely coated, and then we'll turn our attention to the pan where we're gonna heat up, kind of a shallow fry, heat up our oil. Just using a vegetable oil here. You could use peanut oil or something like that. Give our collards a toss. Looking very nice. I want to add some garlic at this stage, just a little bit. If we added the garlic too early, it would start to burn and taste bitter, so we don't want that. Give our etouffee a stir. In with the spot prawns and the Dungeness crab. Look at that, hey? Dungeness crab is one of the most incredible crabs. The thing that makes Dungeness crab most revered, beyond its sweetness, of course, and its wonderful texture, is that it's also 25% of its body mass is edible, which is unique to crabs. Usually you got to fight with that crab or lobster forever just to get a little bit of flavor out of it, a little meat out of it. Oh, that looks fantastic already. It smells so good. A little white wine into our collard greens here, just a splash. That steam sort of helps create that braising motion. All right, this pan is ready. We're not gonna overcrowd it. We're doing sort of like a shallow fry here. We need some of that Zydeco music going on. That'll be helpful here, hey? That might speed things up a little bit. Now I'm just gonna toss them around just a little bit. Let them start to caramelize and crisp up on the bottom before we start flipping them around. Now, what better way to finish this off than to get it into a lovely looking serving plate. Let's go, first thing, we have our rice. We're gonna spoon some rice right into our dish. Collard greens, look at the color on those. They've wilted just nicely. Smells incredible with the garlic and onions. A little bit of that citrusy flavor from the collards. Absolutely fantastic. Okra, a few nice tosses. Our etouffee. We're gonna take this right over to the plate. So we wanna make sure to get some crab, some of those lovely prawns. Man, if you could smell this right now, you'd think you were down in New Orleans dancing away to Mardi Gras. Some green onion chopped up here. Put over top, lovely bit of parsley. Traditionally with a few lemon wedges would be served on the plate as well. A couple of those beauties right there. Louisiana hot sauce. This is where you get to be the chef. Add the hot sauce as you like it. Now, going to use, let's see, I'm going to use this right here just to blot a bit of that oil off the cornmeal. Crispy, golden, smells fantastic. I can't wait to dig into those. See, the camera guy's drooling already, to be honest. Okay, and there we have it. Creole-style Dungeness crab and spot prawn etouffee with sautéed collard greens and cornmeal crusted okra. Wow, that was a lot going on. It's gonna be delicious though. I can't wait to dig in. Now, what better way to enjoy our Creole cuisine than with the right beverage? Today with me from Seasider, Kristen Jordan. How are you, Kristen?
Fine, thanks, Garret.
Thanks for being on the show today. And I have to say, you've brought one of my favorite ciders.
Well, that's good to hear. I wanted to bring the pippins today because I thought it would pair well with the Creole cuisine that you've done up for us today. You mind if I pour some out?
Oh yeah, please, please.
So this is a single varietal cider, and it's certified organic, and we're pleased to say we just won gold with it at the Pacific Northwest Cider Awards. So it's an award winner. Yeah.
Really, I find it so interesting. Single origin apples, and then you were talking about like it's a champagne yeast that you use, and
that's right. So we like to use sort of a white winemaking technique
delicious.
Using champagne yeast, and it truly brings out the best in the cider.
oh wow, and those bubbles are fantastic.
Yeah.
A little frizzante kind of like coats your mouth. It's
Precisely.
fabulous.
Yeah, nice feeling in the mouth there.
Let's see how it holds up to the old etouffee here.
Okay.
After you.
Thank you.
Pretty tasty, huh?
I have to agree.
It actually brings out a little bit more apple in there,
Yeah,
doesn't
I
it?
think what it's doing is it's a kind of a nice juxtaposition, a little bit of savory, a little bit of sweet, and a
Absolutely.
nice balance. That acidity cuts the richness, so it's a good balance.
Excellent pairing. Thanks for bringing the pippins today.
You're welcome.
Check out our website where you'll find a bit more information on today's show and maybe a few surprises. I'm Garret Schack. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to savor the flavor. Let's keep going. Do you try these collard greens?
Yeah.
Have you had collard greens before?
Nope, I haven't.
They're
Get
really
into that.
unique. And like, totally Cajun.
So how?
Well, you just make a mess. You just go.
Okay, go for it. Nice. This would make me eat my greens.